What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another edition of Too Busy, Too Busy, Too Busy Tuesday. Hey, too busy, too busy, too busy Tuesday. Hey, I am so excited to be back with y'all. Listen, last Tuesday was a holiday, and I was like, I'm not going to be able. I thought I was going to be here and it just did not pan out. And so I'm super excited to be back this week. We've got a few more weeks before I'll be on break for the holiday. And I've got special guests lined up every week for the next 3 weeks, y'all. So stick with us, join in, tune in. It's going to be incredible. Now, if this is your first time tuning in to Too Busy, welcome. My name is Raffinée. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. And the disclaimer I give every time is that Too Busy is my series where I share things that I don't have time or energy for anymore. So it can be anything from I don't have time or energy for not having boundaries to I don't have time or energy for satisfying other people's curiosity. Now, the beautiful thing about all of this that I like to say is that just because I'm too busy or just because my special guest that may be here is too busy does not mean you also have to be too busy. So the beautiful thing about all of this is you get to decide and you get to choose. This is just our opportunity to share some things that we've decided, you know what? It's time out for this. I'm not cool with this anymore. Now, y'all, I am so excited to introduce my special guest tonight. Her name is Jenna Mountain. And Jenna, y'all, I got to tell y'all, I met Jenna almost 10 years ago. I was thinking about this the other day.
That is wild.
Right? I was like, whoa, that's a long time ago. But Jenna was my doctoral student supervisor when I was in graduate school to become a counselor.
This
And
is so
so
crazy.
Jenna, I would say, is a huge part of my journey to becoming the counselor that I am today because she watched my tapes, she gave me feedback, she encouraged me, she let me cry. We had all kind of sessions in that little room at that church in Richardson. I don't know if you
That's
remember.
right.
That's where we used to meet. And so I'm super, super excited to have her with us tonight. Jenna, welcome. Thanks for agreeing to be
Thank
here
you.
with me tonight.
I'm so excited to be here. When I got your email and we started reconnecting, I was actually reminiscing myself
Yeah.
about meeting you. And um, I remember being a doc supervisor. And I actually remember thinking to myself, because like we're learning how to be supervisors in my class, and you guys are learning how to be counselors in yours. And
Right.
um, we're talking about our experiences, and I just remember walking away most classes going, I think I got the best supervisees out of this bunch. Like
Mm.
I really did. So you and a couple others that I had the joy of encouraging and giving feedback to, y'all were great. I knew y'all were going to be amazing providers.
Oh,
So yes.
that's so awesome. I love to hear it. Well, tell the people a little bit about who you are before we jump into our topic for tonight. Anything you want them to know about you.
Yeah. So I'll give kind of like the professional, I don't know, 30-second rant, and then
Okay.
I'll tell a little bit about myself personally. So,
Okay.
my name is Jenna Mountain. I am a licensed professional counselor here in the great state of Texas. I am a co-owner with Kimberly Galindo of Aspen Haus Associates, which is a group practice in Richardson, Texas, serving really the entire state of Texas. We have clients from all over the state, clinically as LPCs and LMFTs, all in-person services in the Dallas-Fort Worth area because we have sites in Dallas and we have a site in Fort Worth.
Nice.
And then clinically, I am a certified sex therapist. I'm a trauma specialist. I am EMDR certified. But I also, in the last 2 years, have launched into doing some coaching. And so I get to work with some clients nationally and even internationally,
Nice.
doing some leadership development coaching and then some relationship coaching. So I have sort of branched out a little bit and would call myself cross-disciplinary. So when people ask me for like a one sentence wonder describing myself, I tell them that I am a trauma informed relationship and sex expert, and I am a relationship informed trauma expert. And so I take that pretty much everywhere I go in my
Yeah.
professional work. I am married to a very wonderful human being, Blaine Mountain. He's great. We actually get to celebrate 15 years this next
Oh,
year. And so I'm very
nice.
excited.
Congratulations. That's
Yes.
awesome.
And then we have 2 kiddos, a 10-year-old daughter and a fresh 6-year-old son. So, and they are delights and wonderful, and I don't deserve them. They're just great kids. So, yeah.
I love it. That's so cool. Now, y'all, when I had the conversation with Jenna, what was it? Week before Thanksgiving, maybe?
Yeah.
I was like, Jenna, what are we going to talk about? What's your thing? And she's like, I can talk about this. I can talk about this. And what we landed on was leadership. And
Yeah.
you talked about how you don't have time or energy to not maximize your full potential as a leader. And so
Yes.
let's start with, what do you mean when you say that? Because I think that's so good and so rich.
Well, I love that, as you intro your shows and you kind of play the too busy language both directions. Like, I'm too busy to put up with this anymore, or I've been too busy to do this thing. What I have observed and now spend a great deal of my professional time investing in others in this arena is that a lot of leaders are too busy to actually develop themselves, to invest in themselves. I think we have maybe overreached in our consideration that leadership is positional rather than it being a quality, an attribute. It comes with characteristics that we seek after. And honestly, Kimberly, my business partner, and I, we actually co-coach a lot together. So we team up to do some coaching around leadership. And we talk all the time that we really think everyone's a leader. And a lot of people would not like that statement because they would like to be special. But we really think everyone's a leader. We think only 10% invest. And so we think a lot of people are guilty of being too busy for investing in their leadership. And it does. It keeps you from reaching your greatest potential and your maximum capacity.
Yeah.
And I think you have very successful people who are guilty of that mistake because they are already currently successful. They cannot even imagine being flourishing further, having a greater capacity, reaching new goals.
Yeah.
But we think that most people kind of have untapped potential.
Got it. Now, where do you think, like, how do y'all come up with this idea that everyone is a leader? Because I feel like that's countercultural. Like, you don't hear people walking around talking about, like, oh, everybody's a leader. They like, no, some people are made to be leaders, or some people have natural abilities to be leaders. And so I'd love to hear a little more about some of your thoughts about this, everybody being a leader.
Yeah, I think leadership is a way of moving through the world. I think there are examples where we can use the word leadership and refer to a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I understand that, like, not everybody is in positional leadership in an organization.
Yeah.
Not everyone has organizational power on the org chart, right? But there are lots of examples of people speaking to this. You can lead in your home. You can lead from the second chair. That's one of my favorite sayings from some pretty popular books. You can lead as a follower, if you will. Leadership is how you move through the world. So I don't think that leadership, I think we are automatically in our culture, leadership is about position.
Yeah.
But I also think you can lead in the way that you follow. Okay. So think of groups, think of organizations. It is extremely helpful for the person with positional power to have someone that is maybe, they're direct, that they oversee that person directly reports to them. They have a group of people like that.
Yeah.
When they follow well and are presenting as an example of being in the org chart well and following the leader, they're leading at the level in which they exist in the org chart. So I really do think everyone's a leader. I also think that leadership, one of the things that as I have a 10-year-old who is in 5th grade and will be in middle school next year.
Wow.
We are definitely moving through developmentally those like peer social experiences, and we're consistently trying to speak into, we want you to be a leader, where that is not conditional upon position.
Yeah.
You get voted as class president, you're in charge of everything.
Mhm.
Leadership is not always about power, but it is about being empowered.
That's good.
And we want to teach our kids to be leaders and not popular, because popular is about keeping people happy and being likable, and that has a lot of snares. But being a leader means you are followed because of your integrity, because you are empowered as a human being.
Yeah.
And so I think leadership really is in everyone, but I think very few people invest. And I think maybe one of the reasons people don't invest is because they see leadership as a positional dynamic. And if they don't hold a position, then they should not invest in themselves.
Yeah. That's really, really good. I love the idea of like being empowered, even if you're not in a certain position, because when you said that, I thought about like, oh yeah, there have been people that I have been more prone or apt to follow, even if they weren't the supervisor or the boss, because of their character, because there were traits that I saw or abilities in them that was like, like I can get down with this. So I love that. Now, when you say invest, are we talking financial investments? We talking time investments? Like what are you thinking about when you're talking about investing in yourself as a leader?
I think comprehensively yes to all of that.
Yeah.
I can give some specific examples of all of that. I think leaders are pretty terrible at saying no and having limits. And so that would be an investment of probably self-care and time. I think some people might make choices that have a financial cost, connected to those things. I personally have chosen to financially invest a considerable amount investing in my leadership development, and also provide those same services. And so, yes, there can be a financial component for sure.
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty easy to make that jump because time is money. And when you think about taking time to invest in yourself, it may cost you at face value. I'm going to put a little caveat on there. It may cost you your productivity to not be, doing revenue type activities in that moment. You may pay someone to help you with that leadership development and investment. So I would say it probably always costs you, depending on how you assess that. But I think the return on that investment is high.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about you. We kind of been talking general. So what was the catalyst, I guess, for you to begin to really recognize and even tap into your full leadership potential?
Yeah. Well, the storyline has some kind of twists and turns to it. I had been practicing as a clinical professional, so in my licensure for a while, and was simply getting the itch to scale, expand, get creative. I felt pretty grounded in my skill set and what I was able to do for people, and just felt ready for the next thing. I didn't know what it was. And I started to look into coaching. And so one of the things in the coaching culture, it's different than licensure, but there are some overlaps, and they do want you to kind of do as you preach and say. So they want you to go through a coaching process despite who trains you. Like if you're under any type of oversight or regulation, like they want you to get trained, go through a process, understand what you're doing, and then actually like go through the experience yourself. And so I ran into an old professor who had transitioned into some coaching at a conference. And she said, you need to join my group. It's the first step. You've got to go through it. And I know you and I have a concept map for that, because as clinical providers in our licensure, like we're required to do so much counseling as a part of the gatekeeping in grad school, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you're smart, you go on to do way more than that.
Correct.
So I have had a therapist, I have had a coach,
Me
I
too.
do as I say. Yes. And so I thought, okay, she's right. So I was getting into leadership coaching. I knew I wanted the space for myself because as a mental health provider, I knew that if I took care of myself, there would be a natural positive overflow from that.
Yeah.
And I was also going in to learn what was this concept map of leadership coaching. I had always been referred to as a leader, a natural born leader. It's very much so my personality type. I'm an Enneagram 8.
Okay.
If anybody needs to know that. I'm an ENTJ. We're nicknamed the Field Marshals. So future presidents of America, like everything about my personality like oozes leadership. And so I was really fascinated specifically with that type of coaching. And then I loved this woman. I mean, she's just a phenomenal leader, provider, skilled. And I thought, oh, if I get a chance to sit under her and learn what she does, like I want to do this. So it was a little bit twofold that got me into it.
Got it.
Like a lot of things, right? And then you get into
Yeah.
these experiences and realize, holy smokes, like this is so much more than I thought it was. And so the style of coaching that I am personally still in, I'm still in the same group.
Okay.
And that I offer is cohort style coaching, where they are in annual cycles, so 12-month cohorts.
Okay.
And you can re-up, renew, stay, leave, whatever you want.
Yeah.
You meet once a month for a full day for 8 hours.
Okay.
And it is group style training and feedback and coaching. And then you get one-on-one sessions with your coach.
Okay.
It's not quite monthly, but it's like 10 a year. And
Got
so it's this really deep experience. And that cohort becomes a very unique community because it's co-ed, it is multidisciplinary. There are all types of professions in there.
Yeah.
We've got serial entrepreneurs and CEOs and executive pastors and head pastors and nonprofit executive directors and board members and people who've sold hundreds of businesses, it feels like, and just, don't know what to do with themselves because they're just so successful. And we're all sitting around in a circle, kind of playing each other's community, like really high power, high capacity community. We play each other's board of directors. Like we can like have work groups and discuss, here's this idea I've got for a business or a project, and I love all your feedback, and everybody's giving feedback and answering and asking questions, and they're for you. But it's not just business, it's human. And it's what I love about this very specific type of coaching. Like you can get executive coaching, that's great. It's different. You can get life coaching, that's fine. It's different. Leadership coaching is about looking at us as adults as still developing and like not ever crossing a finish line. And so if I don't conceptualize myself as being able to cross a finish line, life is this really fun adventure that is, it's not limitless. Limits are good, but I probably have greater capacity to maximize if I see it as a journey and a developmental process. And so there's a very human part of this that most leaders leave out. We talk about our feelings, we label our emotions, we process what's happening, we connect our human early childhood story to our business experience. I talk about the little girl that's inside of me who's having a hard time making this business decision because she remembers what happened in the neighborhood when she was 6, and making these connections that actually help me in the present and in the future change the way I'm moving through the world. So I might have gone on a tangent, but I feel like that's how I got into it. And then I thought, not only do I love this, and my coach will have to kick me out or quit because I'm a lifer.
Okay.
I now do this with Kimberly, and we lead coaching cohorts, and it's probably some of the most life-giving work I do. Like, I absolutely love it.
I'm all excited listening to you talk about it. I'm like, I might
Yes.
need to sign up.
Yes.
Just because I think when I think about leadership and development and training, there is not a whole lot of focus on some of the things that you're talking about. It's like, oh, you may go to a conference, or you go to a seminar, or you watch this webinar, or you go to a 3-day conference even, but not this kind of sitting together with other people. Like, I've not seen much of that when it comes to leadership development and having those opportunities to really focus, like what you're saying, on the human side of you.
Yeah.
Because and I love the idea. As a therapist, this really gets me excited, like hearing you say, like, thinking about the little girl and how the stuff that happened back then is impacting me now. Like, that for sure is not happening.
Mm-mm.
Not at a leadership conference, maybe in therapy, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really cool, like, intersection to be able to have, like, both and, I guess, in
Totally.
one space, because it does impact, I would imagine, how you show up as a leader, how you're running your business, the barriers even that may be there in your mind that you may recognize or you may not recognize. And so
Oh,
having a space
completely.
like that to be able to talk through that stuff and have support with people you said that are for you.
Oh, yeah. This group that, like, my cohort, we have such incredible chemistry and love for each other.
Mm,
We share like a big group text, and if I have a rough day or something happens, I can just reach out on the group text and say, "Guys, I really need some." And we learn. We use some of the language from John Townsend and
okay.
some other great concept maps. And
Yeah.
I'll say, "Hey, I need containment."
Mm,
And because we're all learning how to do human interactions really well with each other,
yeah.
they will not give me advice. They will give me containment.
Mm-hmm.
They will not dismiss or reframe. They're like, hey, one of the things we learn is how to be better humans. And we do it with each other. And the cohort is like the playground for developing that. But we also do it with, it helps us do it with our team. So like I now take that with my team of clinicians that I lead, and I know how to offer validation and not give advice.
Yeah.
And I know how to offer containment and attunement in the professional realm, which that is like mind-boggling for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And my team does great because we know how to do that. And these other people that they're leading do great because now these leaders have all gone back to their businesses and their families and their
Mm-hmm.
friends, and they interact on a human level differently because of what they have learned to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so good. Man. I love it.
It's rich. It's so good.
It is. So you talked about at the very beginning, like, leaders are not maximizing some of their full potential sometimes because they are too busy. Like, they're like, I don't
Yep.
have time for that. So let's say someone is watching or listening and they're in that space. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what encouragement might you give to a leader, whether it's, and I want to give this disclaimer, whether it's in the workplace, in your home, in your friendships, because I love what you said earlier, is that we do lead in a lot of different areas and capacities. So it doesn't have to be about a position. So to that person that is struggling, feeling like, I'm too busy, I don't have time to do
Yep.
this or give energy to this, what encouragement might you give them?
I I go back to this with a lot of things, but I think it
Okay.
applies to this as well. I think generally humans really struggle with scarcity mentality. And
Oh, yeah.
there's a fear that if I spend my time on myself, there won't be enough so
Mm,
that I can accomplish these things. And I think that would be very simple elementary math with time.
yeah.
I think that we are far more complex as humans than that type of equation allows for.
Mhm.
And I believe that we, in fact, will get exponential greater return when we stop, when we have limits, when we take breaks, and we allow our humanity to be invested in.
Mhm.
You know, it's actually a control issue. But when we I've had a lot of people ask me, well, tell me exactly what the metrics are that I'll get out of like investing in a program like yours. And there is some research out there. I can pull together a whole slew of things that talks about if you'll do X, Y, and Z, you get greater return on your energy, your effort, your outcomes, because when you're well cared for, you produce better fruit. Absolutely. And so it's not that it's not out there, but what shows up for me when someone asks that question is I'm like, oh, you need to control for the future. Which means you're probably kind of an anxious person. And what we're going to go after is you letting go of control instead of answering that equation. And when you do that, we will, like just this very specific example, the natural outcome is you're going to have an increase of bandwidth and margin in your emotional space and capacity, which is going to allow you to problem solve differently, be creative, find your own solutions instead of paying all these other influencers to hand you their business solutions. They might work, but I honestly believe, business consulting is great. And that's what that is, by the way. But I honestly believe a lot of leaders have the formulas inside of them, like new ones, if they would just take care of themselves long enough to give them the brain space and the energy and the health to come up with them. And so I think it's scarcity mentality. And you have to do something that feels counterintuitive to conquer that. And so, and actually in our cohort, we use a really cool process called immunity to change mapping. It's 30 years of Harvard research developed it. And we went and got trained in it. And so we can actually find that immune system that keeps you from making the changes that you need to make. And we would go after scarcity mentality with that exact model. So just to give you some concrete examples.
Yeah, that's so good. And, I had a conversation with one of my best friends literally last night. We had sat on the phone and talked for like a couple hours because we hadn't caught up in a while. And so she was like, I'm about to go do some work. And I was like, go to bed.
Go to bed. Go to bed.
And she was like, but I got work to do. And I was like, we've talked about this. Like,
you will have work
if
to do
you
tomorrow.
stay up and do this work, it's going to take you longer than if you just go to bed and wake up on a fresh brain and do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that too. So as you're talking about, taking care of yourself, there is such truth to that. Again, I think it's countercultural though, because we live in this world that's like, well, you got to grind and you got to do this and you'll sleep when you
grind and hustle.
And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I want to sleep now.
No, thank you. One of my very favorite quotes, which it's funny that I'm on Too Busy with You, but one of my very favorite quotes is from Peter Scazzero.
Okay.
And he says, he basically kind of calls people out and says, you've got to quit saying you're too busy. He said, I'm not busy, I'm limited.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really powerful quote to acknowledge, because I work with people in counseling and in coaching that literally feel like they have to find a busy excuse to say no to something.
Yeah.
And what that tells me is they think that they're limitless. And I'm like, nope. And it drives them into the ground, like your example. And so to go, I have limits. And we help leaders get in touch with their limits. And when you get in touch with your limits, you get to play at the fullest level within them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. That's so good. Okay, so I got to ask you this question as we're wrapping up. This has been really, really good. I ask all my guests that come on Too Busy, what is something that previously you were like, you know what, I don't have time or energy for, that now you're like, I do have time. I do have energy for this thing or these things.
Yeah. I have a professional answer and I have a personal answer. How's that?
Okay. I love it. Let's go.
So professionally, I would confess that up until about 3 years ago, I was too busy to invest in my leadership. And so it's a reason I'm really passionate about this topic. And so I was very much so flagrantly guilty of this.
Yeah.
Up until about 3 years ago. Also, a part of what I have found personally is I used to say that I was too busy to do some of my, I don't know if you'd call them hobbies, but like just the things that bring me joy at home that cost time, energy, and financial resources. So I'm a closet DIYer.
Okay.
And so my hands look like trash because I've been, I got to go get a manicure. I've been lime washing my house.
Okay.
And, you know, I've had some people say like, oh, you should pay someone to do that. I'm like, no, I want to do it with my hands, right?
Got it.
Work with your mind, play with your hands. So
Yeah.
I have historically said I'm too busy, and now I make time for that because it is good self-care for me. So I get
Yeah.
out there and I get audiobooks or podcasts, and I just like paint the house or do projects. And
I love it.
so, yeah.
That's awesome. I love it, love it, love it. Now, if the people want to find you, want to follow you, do you have a service you're promoting? Can they get in your coaching? Like, what do you
Yes.
have going on? Where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, we are launching our next round of cohorts in January. So it is a
Oh,
calendar
okay.
year. So we have a few spots still open. They are filling up. People are putting down their deposits for that. There's lots of ways to do this. If you pay up front, you get a discount. We've got monthly payments, but we have a few spots left. We have 2 groups next year.
Cool.
And we dedicate a lot of time on our schedules to serve these people because they are investing in themselves. So you can find out more about that a couple different ways, plus a lot of other things I do. You can follow at Aspen Haus Associates on Instagram.
Okay.
And we do spell house a little differently. So it's ASPENHAUS, like a fun German spelling. And then associates. You can follow me on Instagram, which is at the Jenna Mountain. And I've got all of that stuff, link in the bio on both of those. And then, yeah, I think most things you can find on Instagram. I'm a little more active. I don't know if I'm an old lady. I feel like I haven't figured out TikTok. I don't know.
Me either.
Y'all don't hate me. It's just really hard to drive that one. Okay. Like I have figured out Instagram. I was like born 55. So when I finally get to 55, I'll feel like I am congruent. But TikTok's been hard. I've been really pro all other social media. TikTok's been hard for this girl. So I'm technically on there, but I've posted like nothing. But you can find all that stuff on those 2 Instagram handles, and both of them have links in the bio. I have a newsletter that I am getting ready to launch called Know the Difference.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a edgy, spicy, punchy, which is a little bit my personality take on if you know the difference, like KNOW, then you will know what you want to say no to so you can find your yes. And so I think it's just about really nuancing some conversations and educating the world. And then this will be the first time we've teased this publicly, but I'll do it with you, Raffinée.
Okay.
My colleague and I, Kimberly Galindo, we are getting ready to launch a monthly, I don't know what I want to call it yet, but basically we're going to do live webinars. They're going to be like an hour and a half on a Friday morning, once a month. And we're sex experts. We work with couples. We work with almost all the sexual dysfunctions, and people just want to learn sometimes versus going to therapy or coaching, although we do both of those things in those arenas.
Yeah.
And so we are going to launch a very affordable monthly webinar where we teach and talk about relationships and sex. We'll have a bunch of fun.
Yeah.
We'll do some Q&A. It will be very accessible as far as affordability. And so these live webinars. And so if you get on any of our newsletters, we will announce it. Follow us, we'll announce it on there. So a little smattering of kind of how to work with us or stalk us or whatever.
I love it. And all these things will be linked in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on podcasts, or if you're watching this on Facebook. So you'll be able to just click and go look for what you're looking for. Jenna, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here. This has been such a treat for me.
It's a treat for me too.
And hopefully also for everyone that's watching and listening. I hope that y'all will join me next Tuesday. We'll be back again with another guest. We're going to be talking about grief actually next week. Next week is actually National Grief Awareness Week. And so I'm going to have one of my other colleagues coming on talking about grief. So please join us next week. And until then, I will see y'all next time. Peace.